select the speaker in order for you to be able to hear us. I see some people on the lobby. Please help with that so we could start. All right, guys, I think at exactly 20 minutes past 8, we shall begin. I'm trying to give people some time to come through, since in most areas, electricity has just been reconnected. So let's just give them some 2 to 3 minutes, and thereafter we shall start. Kusam, if you can, could you please share the link to the... Okay, I see you've just shared it now. Thank you. Good evening, learners. It's exactly 20 minutes past 8. A very warm welcome to everyone. And thank you so much for coming and for making sure that you are dedicated to ensuring that you develop in this study that we're going to take part in. Just for rules and regulations, please ensure that your mics are always on mute, and also ensure that your camera is also disabled. We don't want to see anyone because it can be very much disturbing. And also in terms of the noise levels that are around where we live, could really lower the quality of what we are trying to do. So tonight, I just want us to dive through that, rather, what we need to look at in terms of the preparation of our poetry section. Just as a reminder, this section is 30 marks. It carries 30 marks of your second paper. And it is so sad to see learners not grasp that which is required in terms of them passing. So many learners don't do well when it comes to this one, simply because maybe there is a misunderstanding of what the text is about. But I believe teachers have done justice to the breaking down of what the texts are all about in terms of the poems, the 12 poems that we have looked into. So I wouldn't want to undermine my colleagues, because I believe all of us have done the best that we can. The only thing which I would really look into as a problem is a lack of understanding of the questions. And this is what's going to mark our session today. Although I do not want to start by looking into analyzing the poem, I feel though I need to start there. For that particular learner who has had a struggle understanding their own teacher, maybe I could share some light, because sometimes it helps hearing something from a different voice. So I believe in this discussion that one or two would be able to get an understanding of what it is we are trying to do. So today we're going to start and look into the poem An African Elegy by Ben Okri. But I just need us to history or the history behind the men. So first of all, we know that Ben Okri was an African writer born in Niger in 1959 or in 1959. The man spent early childhood in London and published his first novel by the age of 21. We indeed have among us geniuses. I mean, at 21, you already have a novel published. That's something. That's something to be praised. He writes about the developments in Africa. Could some please manage the lobby for me? And after the end of colonization or colonialism, and examines the struggles against corruption and exploitation. Ben Okri has won many awards for his work and campaigns against censorship. So that is a brief history on the man whose poem we're going to look into tonight. Now, I want us then to quickly and immediately go into what it is that we need today. So, an African elegy. I need you to be able to, guys, as I analyze the poem. It's very much important to take notes, although we will be able to stream back to the video and watch later. But I would really advise that as I go along and I analyze and I take you through the poem, it will be very much visible to take notes. I want us to start by looking at a type of a poem that we are dealing with. Number one, we are dealing with an elegy. Already that is evident in the title, An African Elegy. So first of all, we need to look at what an elegy is. So traditionally, elegies are very serious and mournful poems. But then in this case, we have an African elegy that really and totally ignores the mournful and serious elements of what an elegy is. And this type of an elegy looks at a celebration or something that should be celebrated, or it is celebratory. So an elegy in this case is a poem that celebrates and commemorates this type of an elegy, which is an African elegy. But I wanted to not confuse funeral blues as an elegy that is mournful, sorrowful, and serious, as opposed to this one that we are currently looking into, which is an African elegy. So we are looking at a celebration of an African. Now, I want us to very carefully look into each stanza so we are able to understand what it is that we are dealing with. Now, let's look at stanza one. That is lines 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, I want us to, if you can, in fact, it's not a matter of if, you should be able to do this. Now, I want you to look into the personal pronouns used here. In line one, we have the personal pronoun we. And in line three again, we have a personal pronoun we. And then in the fourth line, we have personal pronoun our. Why is Ben Okri making use of personal pronouns? It's quite simple. He uses personal pronouns in this case to involve the reader and also to involve himself, or include the reader and include himself into the issue of being an African. So we as Africans are the miracles that God made. Now look at the word miracles. It's a very positive word. So Okri states that we are miracles that God made to taste the bitter fruit of time. Now in line 1 and 2, we have a metaphor here, which creates an image of some freedom, because in the miracles lies nothing but positivity. So we are something positive that God has made. But God has made us to taste the bitter fruit of time. Then line 2 gives us an oxymoron, because you cannot have bitter and fruit side by side. I mean, there is some contrast here. I mean, fruit is by nature sweet, and then we have bitter next to fruit. We have been made to taste both the good, that is the fruit, and the bad, that's the bitter. Of what? Of time. And I want you to take note of the capitalization of time here. So time is capitalized in order to um, indicate the importance of the time and the experiences that we have to go through. And in the third line, he says, though we have been made to taste the bitter fruit of time, we are precious. I mean, the word precious is again another positive word. So it has a lot of spiritual connotations there. I mean, if something is precious, it is valuable, it is worth noting, it is worthy. So we are precious. Not only are we precious in each other's eyes, but we are precious even to the powers that be, even the greatest of them all, which is our Lord. So we are precious, and one day our suffering, I mean, suffering is the next word. So we looked at the first word being miracles, it's positive. The second word is bitter fruit, is a negative word. Miracle is positive, bitter fruit is negative, precious is positive, suffering is negative. And one day our suffering will turn into the wonders of the world or of the earth. So the wonders of the earth is yet another positive. Now I want us to count the negatives in this stanza. So we have bitter, we have suffering. So in stanza 1, we've got 2 negatives, and we've got miracles, that's 1, precious, that's 2, wonders of the earth, that's 3. So we've got 3 positives and 2 negatives. Already in the first stanza, the positives outweighs is giving a sense of hope to the reader. say, oh wow, though I've gone through sufferings, I have tasted the bitter fruit of time, but still I remain God's miracle, and I remain precious, and I remain the wonder of the earth. And if I am a wonder, it gives us a sense of mystery. I hope you're writing. I'm also writing as I speak. So it gives us a sense of mystery. There is something about us that people cannot fully fathom, something about us that people cannot even fully understand. So there are things that burn me now. I mean, things that burn me now is another negative, which turn golden. That's a positive. Turn golden when I am happy. So things in our experience as Africans might burn us at a certain time, but we then understand the power of the burning. It's like the fiery furnace, or not only a fiery furnace, but it is the refiner's fire. Now, every gold should go through refining, and the refining that the gold must go through will not be possible without the burning sensation or the burning process to ensure that the gold is pure. And the only way gold would be pure is when it has gone through the burning system of the fiery furnace and the refiner's fire. So these things are burning, but yet they turn golden when I am happy. So there is something about the African and their happiness that is likened to something turning to gold. So that how precious we are, that's what Okri is stating here, or the speaker, that there are things that turn golden when we are happy. So it means it's very much important that we get happy from time to time. And then he gives us a question. He asks the question, a rhetorical question here. He says, do you see the mystery of our pain? Now, our pain is another negative word, but at the same time, we have a positive word, which is a mystery. So it means that pain is not without purpose. So in this case, the speaker says to us that the pain we go through is full of mystery. It is at a certain time misunderstood by many, because this is how we get people end up killing themselves, because they don't understand the mystery of the pain. So within our pain, there is some secrecy that's taking place. And it's so sad that the secrecy that takes place is not going to be revealed until a certain time. So we've got to understand that our pain is not without a mission. So the pain that we go through as African has a mission to accomplish. And therefore, we tend to bear poverty. Now, that's another negative word there. So the poverty that we bear is also a part of the painful experience that we are going through as Africans. So he says, do you see the mystery of our pain, that we bear poverty? But listen to this, while we bear poverty, I mean, let's look at the word bear. Now, if something you bear, it connotes some heaviness. It gives us an image of someone who is heavily laden. So poverty is heavy. It is overwhelming. I'm sure you're writing these words. It is overwhelming in nature. But though we bear poverty, Okri says, we are able to sing and dream of sweet things. What a wonderful line. that though you are crying because of poverty, because of pain, because of the burning that you're going through, you are able to sing. I mean, let's look at the notion of singing. I mean, as Africans, we have been associated to singing. We could see the singing during the apartheid era, how the power of song was used by the African people in the midst of the difficulties they were going through, how the Africans in America as slaves could sing Negro spirituals, as they would call them. So we have identified that it is within our singing that lies, or it is in our singing that the power to be encouraged is found. So we are able not to sing only, but we are able to dream and have visions of what? Of sweet things. What a contrast. What a contrast it is to the pain, to the burning, and as well as to the poverty. So Okra says, what a wonderful this is, or wonderful thing is, this is to be very much aware of our poverty, of our pain, of the burning, but yet be able to sing. Now, let us again work out the positives and the negatives. Burn is the first, pain is the second, poverty is the third. Let's look at so in the second stanza, we have three negatives. I'm sure you're writing that. Now let's look at the positives. It's turn golden, mystery, and sing and dream sweet things. So in the stanza, we've got three positives and three negatives. All right, let's go to the next stanza. And then he says, we are able to sing and dream about sweet things, and that we never curse the air when it is warm. I mean, let's look at curse the air. That's another negative word. Kosam, are you managing well there? All right. Thank you. Uh, okay, let's continue. I'll just leave the lobby in your hands so that I focus here. So he says, we never curse the air when it is warm. I mean, when all things are going right, we tend not to curse. We don't curse, we don't question, we just live life. So, and then he says, all the fruit when it tastes so good. So, I mean, fruit would represent our lives, how how beautiful our life is. So when our lives are fruitful, we never curse the air. I mean, when we look at the air would represent the higher power in this case. So in this case, it would be God. And because we are Africans have uh, polytheistic beliefs, so it would be on the ancestry. So they would believe in the ancestors or ancestors. So they would look at the air as representatives of these two entities. So when things are going right, you don't curse God, neither do you curse the ancestors. That's what we are able to deduce from Okri's words here in line 11. And in line 12, or the fruit when it tastes so good, or the lights that bounce gently on the waters. I mean, the lights would represent the sun rays. I mean, sun rays are an announcement of the beginning or the dawning of a new day. So as the sun rays bounce, how do they bounce? They bounce gently. I mean, what is this? This adjective is giving us more information on how the lights bounce. They bounce gently on the waters. So when all of these beautiful things take place, I mean, what a sight this is when lights are bouncing gently on the waters. Great sight if you have been around the ocean and or the beach. You would attest to this issue of the lights bouncing gently on the waters and how beautiful that is. So we bless things even in our pain. That's one thing that separates Africans from other people. That's Okri's argument here, to say Africans are able to bless. Let's look at the word bless. I mean, this gives us a spiritual form. It heightens our spirituality to say, though we go through things, we are yet able to bless things. We are able to bless even in our pain. So in our pain or in our darkest times, we are still able to bless. And how and when do we bless these things? We bless them in silence. African people are extremely powerful when they sing and when they are silent. So this is what Okri is saying to us today, to say, when we sing, we are powerful. When we are silent, we are equally powerful. That's where our power lies, in both our silence and in our singing. So that is why our music is so sweet. Because within us, we carry the power of song and yet the power of a missile represented by our silence. So we are both armed and dangerous with song and the weapons of war through our silence. We are able to just keep silent and shoot missiles and do things that we never thought we would be able to do just in our silence. So this is why our music is so sweet. It makes the air remember. Even God is able to remember our song, because as we sing sweet songs, they ascend up on high, and he is able to release blessings to his people because he is blessed by the song that goes up as incense to him in the heavens. So there are secret miracles at work. How Okri, what are you saying? So you started off in line 1 and you said we are the miracles. So now in line 18, you are speaking about not only miracles, but you are speaking about secret miracles at work. So Okri here is trying to tell us that in the same breath that we are miracles that God made, there are other things that God makes in secret, which only time will bring forth. Now, let's look at the notion of time. Again, time is capitalized as one important entity. There are things that are working in secret, that God is working as miracles in secret, which only time, it's like that pregnant woman who is expecting a child. We cannot see the child, but we know the child is in there because the belly tells us so. Her nose tells us that she is expectant. Her swollen legs tell us. Her wardrobe, I mean, she now has to dress up in maternity wear. We are able to tell that something is coming, but we cannot see it. So this is what Okra is trying to say to us, that there are things that are secret miracles at work that only time, so after 9 months, we are able to see that baby after it's born. We are able to see, oh, it's a boy. oh, it's a girl. And with all of these gender reveal processes, let's put them out of the way, because these came as a result of the advancement of the technological instruments. But let's take it back to Okri's times, and when they wrote these things, I would assume that in those days there were no gender reveal machines, and therefore miracles of babies would be celebrated to say, oh, it's a boy, we didn't know. Oh, it's a girl, we didn't know. So there would be that excitement. And then it says, I too have heard the dead singing. Now again, we are bringing the aspect of the ancestry. So he's able to hear them sing along with them. So the dead and the alive singing together. And they tell me that this life is good. So the ancestry tells him that life is good. Why? Simply because they have experienced it before. They have seen that the good always outweighs the bad. So they have a testimony to give, to say, hey, dude, this thing called life is livable. You can live. Yes, you're going through X, Y, and Z, but at the same time, X, Y, and Z is just a part of the plan. It's just part of the process. It's part of this thing called life. Go through it. Don't take your life. So if people knew that trouble won't last always, they would not take their lives. So this thing called life is good. They tell me to live it gently. Now they're giving him an advice to say, live it gently, because life ought to be respected. If you can't respect life, life is going to show you flame. Live it gently, but, and then they have a contrast here, live it with fire. Make sure you live it with fire. Live it with passion. Live it. Let nothing stop you from living. I mean, fire is unstoppable. If there are no enough material to stop the fire will put out everything. So you live it unstoppable and unhindered and unconstrained or restrained. Make sure you live it gently. So you must live it softly, responsibly, respectively, but at the same time, live it with passion and always with hope. So be optimistic. That's what we get out of what Okra is saying. We need to be very much optimistic in how we experience this thing called life. And therefore, he continues to say, there is wonder here. Africa, there's a lot of wonder here. And there is surprise. Now, there's another version of the African elegy, especially every line is the same, but the only difference is line 26. And it reads, and here is surprise. And here there is surprise in Africa, in everything that the unseen moves. Now let's look at the unseen. Again, we are looking at the powers that be. That would be the God as well as the ancestry, as Ben Okri is putting this out to us. So there is everything that these powers are able to move. So it's like they're playing a game of chess that we are unable to see, where decisions are made, where destinies are decided on, because there is something in the unseen that these two are able to move. So that's why you don't have to be extremely depressed that you forget that in everything the unseen moves, there is, or here is surprise. We always get surprised how we got out of certain situations, how we got out of certain relationships, how we got out of certain troubles, because there is something that the unseen is able to move. The ocean is full of songs. Now we are getting the issue of the oceans here. The oceans, I mean, sounds of the ocean. So that issue of the sounds is compared to songs. What songs? Songs that Africans have been able to sing while they were dreaming about sweet things. So the sky is not an enemy. Sorry, that is God here. In most cases, when things don't go well, he's the first person to be blamed. Why me? Why didn't you protect me from? Why did you allow this? But Okri says the sky is not an enemy, or the atmosphere under which we live is not an enemy. So everything that you're going through is not by mistake. It was part of the plan. And there is no enemy, there is no power that has inflicted you with whatever pain you're going through. It is not an enemy. It is all because you carry destiny. And it is this destiny which is our friend. That is, ladies and gentlemen, an African elegy. Now, I want us to look at the questions in front of us here and try and work them out. Again, I'm going to request that we interact. It can be a one-man show. I didn't see Keith coming through today, so I doubt we'll have anyone bail us out like he would do under normal circumstances. So nizoba exposed again namhlanje. Keith akekho. Keith ukhona? Oh yeah, nangu. Keith, ngicela ukukunika i-break namhlanje. Ngicela abantu bakhulume. Ngicela nje namhlanje you're on leave, so you're going to act as if you're not here. So the question gives us a line reference. Again, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at the mark allocation. Your poetry mark allocation will always be 2233. Now, please understand, you know, at Marking Center, we always come across things which are so crazy. Last year, we found lengthy answers. I mean, for a 2-mark question, a learner would write a response that takes up the whole page, a full page. And unfortunately, for paper 2, we have to read everything. We don't look for keywords in your answer. We read each and every line. We would read that line only to discover that what the learner has written is nothing but hot air. And we credit 0. Imagine writing a full page for 2 marks and not even get a single mark. It is quite possible. So let's look at the length of our responses. For 2-mark questions, you need at least a minimum of 2 to 3 lines, or if not 3 to 4 lines. I can't remember. Keith, please do remind me, and the others from my class. What did we say? 2 marks. What's the length?
2 to 4 lines.
It's 2 to 4 lines. Thank you. So for your 2-mark questions, you need at least 2 to 4 lines, guys. We have 14 minutes left. I want us to finish these questions in the 14 minutes that's left. And then in the next hour, we're going to pick up the second poem. I know I had said to us we're going to do a hard frost, but I felt I'll do a hard frost on another day. So we are going to do first day after the war. All right. Refer to line 8. Let's go there. Do you see the mystery of our pain? Now, the instructional verb here is to suggest. Now, the question seeks the reader to suggest a reason for the inclusion of the rhetorical question. So, why was a rhetorical question included here? What does that question emphasize? Here's where you guys need to come in. I mean, we're looking at, okay, Lesego. Lesego.
So, so the rhetorical question reminds us that it is not necessary to answer the question or search for the meaning behind the question. So in this line, the reader is asking himself a question which we don't need to answer, but he okay,
Listen, you are stuck.
Yes.
Okay, can somebody else come through? Guys, I mean, what is the speaker marveling about? What are things that make the speaker marvel? And what are the things that make the speaker amazed? Things are listed below. They are listed as to what it is. They are what it is that the speaker is amazed of. Okay, who's giving an answer there? Let me see.
Okay, so I said that the rhetorical question, what is this? It shows the suffering and the hardship with words like
I'm listening.
we bear. Oh, so can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so I was saying that the rhetorical question shows the suffering and the hardships that people are going through. And we see this with words like we bear, where is this? Oh, can't see the poem, sorry, sir. We, where is this thing?
We bear poverty.
Yes, sir, we bear poverty, sorry, yeah. We bear poverty, and despite this, they are able to celebrate and be joyful in their sufferings.
So that's the rhetorical question, which emphasizes how the nature of the people's reaction towards the suffering. I mean, while they are suffering, they are able to sing. So the speaker is puzzled by that reaction of how you're able to remain sane when situations don't want you to be. So that is what we are looking for there. Let's go to the next. You can mute your mic now. Please get your mics muted. All right, let's move on. Refer to line 9. Let's go to the ninth line. That we bear poverty. Now, explain what the word bear implies about the local people. I think I did speak of the connotations behind the word bear. So what does this mean about the local people? Come on, guys. It's Kachamba. already 2 minutes past 9. Unati. Okay, Lesego. Lesego.
The word bear implies that poverty is a burden to them, and it shows the weight we are carrying because of poverty, and the endurance displayed despite life's hardships conveys the extract of their reluctantness.
All right. Okay, you do have the problems that they face being a burden. So we are, yeah, you were able to at least tell what it is that the question was looking for there. So they are able to endure and tolerate their hardships without distress or annoyance. They are accepting of their suffering and are also prepared to live with it. So this word conveys the extent and relentlessness of their suffering. All right, let's move to the next question, guys. Let's hurry up. Line 16 to 17. That is why our music is so sweet. It makes the air remember. Comment on the significance of the music being so sweet that it makes the air remember. Again, the word significance means the importance. Why is it important that the music is said to be so sweet that it makes the reader, the air, remember? Now we're moving to the 3-mark territory. So the lines are extended here. This should be about 4 to 5 lines here. A minimum of 3 to 5 lines that we are looking at here. Okay, can anyone respond to that? Why is it significant that the music is being so sweet that it makes the air remember? What does singing represent? Fusion. Okay. You're not done. You are right. You are on the right track. You're on the right track. So the singing shows their optimistic attitude towards life. So music is that thing that even after the song is ended, the air would carry the music, would still remember the music even after the song has ended. So you were Kakosam. All right, let's look at the last question, and then we'll end the section and start with the new um, meeting. The last stanza. And there is surprise in everything unseen moves. The ocean is full of songs. The sky is not an enemy. Destiny is our friend. Critically comment on how the speaker's tone conveys the central idea of the poem. Guys, don't give an all over the show type of response here. In your response, you need to show that you do understand the central idea of this poem and how the speaker's tone then conveys that idea. And how do I know the tone? There are particular words that I need to look at, the diction, to see what tone is the speaker giving. I mean, there is surprise, and here is surprise. In everything the unseen moves. The ocean is full of songs. I mean, that is an optimistic type of a tone. It is a thoughtful tone. So here, this is in awe of the magical quality of nature and life. So he focuses on the promises of a better life and the need to be in harmony with our world. The speaker's tone reflects his amazement, Nayo, at the people's faith and endurance. People are full of faith in times of serious problems. So the message, that's the central idea of the poem, is that Africans are eternally hopeful in spite of hardships. They are able to find positives even in difficult situations. So don't give a blank response of saying the speaker's tone conveys the critical idea. You should show in your response that you know what the central idea is. Central idea could be asked as a theme. They might say convey the theme of the poem, or they might say conveys the message of the poem. So now this brings us to the first leg of our section. So we're going to end the meeting now and reconvene immediately with the first day after the war. Can you hear me, guys? All right. Okay. Let's end the meeting and then we shall reconvene in the next few seconds. All right, welcome to the second session. And yeah, okay, sorry. I just need to check if you are able to see and you are able to hear me as well. Can see, all right, 3 thumbs ups, and the rest it means you can't hear me, or you can. Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would really like to say the following before we start with the second poem, First Day After the War. I want to encourage you guys to not fear writing a literature essay poetry as your selection in your final exam. It's quite rare for learners to fail this question, especially if they understood the assignment. So I want us to read the essay topic before we engage with the poem itself. In the first day after the war, look at how they wrote the first day after the war. It is in inverted commas to indicate that it is a title. So when you write titles of books or poems, you need to put them in inverted commas like that, or you underline that. Could some please manage the lobby? So in the first day after the war, the speaker focuses on the celebration of new beginnings. So you are going to deal with the celebration of new beginnings. How so? I mean, for this particular essay, you only need 5 paragraphs, and that should be 1 page long. Now let's look at how to divide your paragraph. The first paragraph would be your intro. Your second paragraph will be your first paragraph in your body. So that's body 1. So in this case, we are told with close reference to diction. So body 1 is going to be my diction paragraph. Then body 2 is the third paragraph, would be about the imagery. Now, please be aware, when we deal with imagery, we are dealing with everything that is within the figures of speech. So what figures of speech are used to create particular images? Those are your metaphors, synecdoches, antithesis, allusion, apostrophes, alliteration, assonance, hyperbole, juxtaposition, metaphors, and so forth and so on. So for this one, you need to know your figures of speech very well. And then your fourth paragraph is your body 3. So that would deal with the tone. So here again, you're going to look at words or diction that alludes to the tone of what? Of celebration of new beginning. So, and then your final or fifth paragraph is now your conclusion paragraph. So you've got 5 paragraphs and then you are done. I mean, I would really advise you to practice writing these essays. And I promise you, by the time E17 is a figure for you to write your final exam, you should be able to by then, or you should by then have managed to polish your skills. Now, first day after the war, we are looking at a South African poem here. And we are looking at that first day after the war being representative of the apartheid era. So the title in itself is a metaphoric expression where the end of the apartheid regime is announced. And this apartheid is equivalent to the war. And we know that the war is one dangerous experience in that it leaves casualties, it leaves people dead, and it leaves people dead within. So some are physically dead while others are dead emotionally and otherwise. So Gunene takes us through the first day after the end of apartheid. And the first day after the end of the apartheid would be the beginning of freedom as well as the democracy. So let's look at the paragraphs, I mean the stanzas here and see what it means. So we heard this. I mean, let's look at songs. I mean, songs are for joyful purposes and for celebration purposes. Why do I say this in this case? We are looking at a wedding party. So we have yet another metaphor, looking at a wedding as a joining together of certain groups. So this wedding in this case is a joining together of both the black and the white of the time. So therefore, we need the songs which are heard. So already we get a tone here of celebration. So the tone is celebratory in the first line. So we heard the songs of a wedding party. We saw the soft light. Again, a metaphor. Now, what does this metaphor give an image of now already? So still an imagery here. It gives us an image of hope and an image of optimism. And this light is soft instead of it being bright. Again, if you remember when we spoke of where is my African, let me go back to African elegy, where we spoke about the sun rays and um, 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 where's that line? I'm trying, yeah, line 13, or the lights that bounce gently on the waters. We spoke about that reflection of the sun rays. In this case, it is now very soft. The light is soft, which indicates that it is not that bright light that shines during the day. It is that soft light that comes right in the dawning of the new day. So already we are getting a sense of the new beginning here, a sense of hope and a sense of optimism, the coming of the new dawn. We are looking at the newness of a season that's coming to us. So this coming of a soft life was coiling around the young blades of grass. Now let's look at what young blades would represent. That's a figure of speech again. Figures of speech will have to do with your imagery. So as you take notes, please make sure you have your imagery and you have all of the figures of speech so that when you start discussing imagery in your essay, you're able to quote a particular word or words and what kind of figure of speech and what image is that particular figure of speech creating. So now that's an allusion. So we have an allusion to young men and young women. They are alluded to as blades, not just young, I mean, not just as blades of grass, but young blades of grass. I mean, grass is green in color. And already we know green speaks of innocence, it speaks of new beginning, it speaks of nature that is so beautiful. So the young blades had this light coiling. So the optimism and the hope was coiling around the young blades of grass, around the young people. But now, at first, we hesitated. So in the fourth line, we see hesitation and uncertainty. People were unsure of whether or not was this the real dawning of a new day. Because after you've been in war for so long, it gets very, very, very heavy to accept freedom at face value, because you feel it is unreal. It's so surreal that you are amazed that it is happening. So listen to the next line. The eyes of freedom. No, sorry. At first, we hesitated. Then we saw her footprints. So we get that her footprints as another personification. It is as if her footprints, the freedom, was leaving a long lasting impression, which is the footprints. Footprints are, they could be long lasting. It depends if there is not going to be any soil erosion and all of that. But footprints give us a sense of a long lasting effect. And these footprints are that of a hair, a woman. So we get a sense of a feminist or a feminism approach here, where this freedom that's coming in is compared or given feminine qualities. And we know about feminine qualities. They are gentle, they are nurturing, they are loving beings. And therefore, already we get a sense that the freedom that's coming, it's very gentle. It's not coming as something that is very violent. So her face emerged, again, personification, then her eyes of freedom. So it's like the sun. When the sun rises in the morning, sometimes we see half of it. So it is that freedom that is showing its head, it's emerging, its face is emerging. And the only part we could see up to is the eyes. I mean, when we look at the eyes of a woman, we already see nothing else but beauty. So this freedom is a beautiful thing that is coming up, that is emerging in the face of the planet, in the face of the African soil, in the face of the South African soil, because we did not have. And this freedom, she woke us up with a smile. It's very typical of women to wake up her children with a smile. This is not to say fathers cannot do that, but we are focusing on the feminization here that is taking place. So she woke us up with a smile and asked us a question. What day is this that comes so suddenly? We said it's the first day after the war. Then without waiting, we ran to the open space. I want us to look at the idea here of the open space. Again, running to the open space would give us something to look at. I mean, when we look at the restrictions that the African people had or South Africans had during the apartheid season, they would not have the freedom of movement. But after the first day after the war, they were running. I mean, this is in contrast to being controlled and to being limited. So in this case, they were able to share with others and to travel and to experience the open spaces which they were not allowed to experience. So as they were running to the open space without waiting, they began to ululating to the mountains and the pathways. Again, so to ululate, that is another figure of speech, an onomatopoeia. I mean, that onomatopoeia, again, figure of speech, gives us an imagery of jubilation, an imagery of no restraint, an imagery associated to a sound of joy. So as they were ululating to the mountains and the pathways, they began to call people from all the circles of the earth. That's what celebration is all about. That's what parties are all about calling people from different places to celebrate something. So now let's move on. We shook up the old man demanding a festival. I want us to look at the old man as a synecdoche where we speak of the older generation. The older generation is that old man who was shook up. So they had to shake him up. It's as if the old man was not believing that this thing is happening. So the old man was very reluctant because he had struggled with the system before. And now that the freedom he cried for was here, he couldn't believe that it was there. So he had to be shaken up as someone who was asleep. And he was shook up, and a festival was demanded from him. And then we asked for all the first fruits of the season. I want us to look at first fruits. That first fruit, we have an alliteration there with a repetition of the F, and at the same time we have a metaphor. Now, what are first fruits? That gives us an image of the results of the freedom. I mean, fruit is very sweet. So all this while, under the war, under the apartheid, we have been tasting the bitter fruit of time. And now we get to enjoy the fruit without the bitter. Here is our freedom, and it needs to be celebrated. So, as a celebration, as a celebratory mood, we held hands with a stranger for the first time. We couldn't hold hand with white people. So the white people in this case would be the stranger. So now we got to held hands or hold hands. I'm going to keep the tense, guys, as it appears on the poem so that I don't lose it. So we held hands with a stranger. We shouted across the waterfalls. So our shout was now in contrast to the sound made by the waterfalls. That's how excited we are. That's how excited the Africans are at this point. And therefore, as a result of our shout across the waterfalls, people came from all lands. People from all over the world could not help but see the democracy that we were now beginning to have. People now were able to see that the Africans in South Africa have the dawning of a new day as an experience. And then it was the first day of peace. Now we have an antithesis going on there. These are figures of speech. I started off with a synecdoche. So a synecdoche would be using part of something to stand for a whole. So we have a part which is peace, standing for a whole, which is hope. And in this case, I was saying it's a mistake lab. We are looking at the old man, represent the older generation. Sorry. And then peace, that is the antithesis. So we are looking at the antithesis here, being now the opposite used for rhetorical effect. So we have the peace, which is used opposite to the rhetoric of the war. So it was the day of peace. And then we saw our ancestors traveling tall on the horizon. Now they're bringing the issue of the ancestry. And now, traveling tall is our alliteration, figures of speech, guys. Ancestors are capitalized with capital letter A. Why? Because in the African nation, they have a place of prominence. They have a place that is of importance. In the spiritual world, they stand, or their status is high. So therefore, the Africans are able to, as a society, pay tribute to them. So in this case, in this last line, tribute is paid to them, that they are traveling tall. They are proud in the words traveling tall. They are traveling tall on the horizon. So someone made an observation the other time to say, when we look at this traveling, are they traveling in death, or are they traveling with us alive? And the answer was either way. As they travel to their places of rest, they are doing so with pride. As they live among the people, they are doing so as proud individuals, because they understand that the cause for which they fought is now here. Hence, they are traveling tall. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the first day after the war. Let me try and see. Okay, no, I'll keep this in discussion. What I'm gonna ask you to do for me, guys. Today is Wednesday, and we are meeting again tomorrow. By the way, if you do remember, we need to do another set of 2 poems. So what I need you to do for me is, by Friday, I need all of you to send me just a page of this essay. Please don't write it on a piece of paper. I want you to type it so that I can be able to copy, edit it, and send back to you, so I can where you are right and where you are wrong. Remember, if we can do this before the writing on the 17th, by the 17th, we would have one thing or two that we have learned which we can put into practice. Am I making myself clear there, learners? Guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. People are quiet, and then I feel like I'm talking alone. So again, diction, every time you hear the word diction, you're looking at dictionary, words as in the dictionary. So you're going to look words such as, I'm going to give you an example, wedding party. That speaks of a new beginning. I said the wedding is a joining of 2 groups. The other thing I forgot to say about a wedding, yeah, it's a joining together. So in this case, we are looking at the joining together of both white and black. In the Zulu culture, a wedding is symbolic of fertility. That's about new life, the new birth, the newness, or the union in the Zulu culture. So a wedding is representative of fertility, giving birth to something new, new life, and a union that is being forged. So now, again, in First Day After the War, the speaker focuses on the celebration of new beginnings. So your focus in this is the celebration of new beginnings. So you're going to find words that deal with celebration of new beginning. That's for your diction. And then imagery, you're going to find figures of speech that alludes to a celebration of new beginnings. And then finally, you're going to look for words that create a tone. Again, what is tone? We said tone is the attitude of the speaker towards their subject. So the speaker's attitude towards their subject, what is their subject? The celebration of new beginnings. So what words are they using to create a particular tone? So you should be very clear as to what type of tone is the speaker um, addressing by use of a variety of words. So as you speak about tone, please do quote certain words to um, make your argument more stronger. Any question, guys, before we dismiss the class? All right. Yeah.
When we write our speech, I'm saying speech, our essay, should we send it to you directly or in the group?
No, you can send it to me directly. Please send it to me directly. Ne?
Okay, sir.
The other thing I need to also say, never ever, learners, I want you to hear me very carefully. Never ever write an essay, whether for paper 2 or for paper 3, without planning. You should plan. And one should take a form of, excuse me? All right. Your response should take a form of a well-constructed essay. So what am I saying here? Although I spoke to you about breaking your paragraphs down, I need to go back to I can't find them anymore. Okay, here they are. I spoke about 5 paragraphs and I said body 1, body 2, body 3, and conclusion. Please don't never have sub headings. Avoid that. This was just me trying to help you on how to structure your essay. Don't even have a subheading that says introduction. You would have that in business studies, not in English. Don't have a subheading at diction, they say, under which you write your paragraph, and then besoba nenye paragraph at imagery, and lastly you have a paragraph that says tone, and then you finally have a paragraph that says conclusion. Never ever write like that. That is only for business studies, not for English. So it must be well constructed. As a reader, I should be able to pick up that this is your introduction and this is your body 1, this is your body 2, this is your body 3. And as you move from body 1 to body 2, you need to remember to link the peel method, the point, the evidence, the explanation, and then the link. Take me from paragraph 1 to the next paragraph. Don't leave me hanging. I need to be able to understand from each paragraph how you were able to maneuver from one paragraph to the next. So, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of our discussion. Again, word count 250 to 300 words. Now, again, let us don't waste time trying to count words. Make sure you write an essay of about a page. That will be enough. For your literature essays, I mean, it is a literature essay, even this one that you're writing, except that it is based on poetry. But any other literature essay, except for a poetry essay, must be a minimum of 2 pages and a maximum of 2.5 pages. Okay, guys, before I leave, can I also take you through? Please take this down. Remember, these days we are busy with the bare minimums. I hate using that strategy, but unfortunately, for a number of reasons, I think we might as well accept that there are a number of learners who might need to stick to the issues of the bare minimums. I'm trying to look for my notes here. Okay, let me do this. I seem not to find what I'm looking for. Okay, give me a moment, guys. I need to resend this so I can okay, it seems like it's not here. Where is this? Ish. Gallery screenshots should be here. Yeah, it should be here. Let me try and send it, and then we'll look at it. Okay, we have about 10 minutes left. Okay, I should be able to see it. All right, just give me a few minutes, it's loading. All right, there it is. Let's look at this presentation here. So we are looking at paper 2, which is your literature paper. It's out of 2.5 hours. So what's going to happen here is, let's look at the bare minimum, which is a 40% pass strategy for paper 2. So for section A, you've got poetry 1 and poetry 2 and poetry 3. Now, I want us to look at the maximum marks, which is on the right-hand side, and the target mark, which is on the left-hand side. Your unseen poetry, you are expected to get at least 2 marks out of 10. Just as I've said to you, I hate using this bare minimum strategy, but for learners who are really struggling, at least in order for you to pass, at least get 2 out of 10 for your unseen poetry. And then you have your first selection of a poem, which I guarantee you to get a 5 marks for when you pick up the essay. The essay uzoithole 5 nakanjani, unlike a contextual where you can even get a 0 for. So your essay would give you the 5 mark out of 10. There are learners who can pick transactionals and do well. I'm not being prescriptive, but looking at the past and the history and how marking takes place, most learners who pick up question number 1 do much better than the others who never selected it. So I would really advise that you select question 1. Poetry prescribed, again, 5 out of 10. For your novel, in terms of your essay or contextual, out of 25, you are at least expected to get 10 marks. And for your drama, you are expected to get at least 10 marks again for your contextual or your essay. So at least you should get a total of 30 out of 80 marks in order for you to pass. So we are telling again, Tasekai, ensure that you do the right thing. Okay, before we leave, the last slide that I need to bring to your attention is a very important one. Okay, I don't think I have it here. Where is it? Okay, let me look for it, guys. This one is very important. Otherwise, if I don't go through it, I know You guys are going to make a mess. Okay, it's not here. Okay, let me just take you through it even without seeing it. Guys, you are going to get for the first time a huge document. So your paper this time is going to be extremely huge than the normal. So in most cases, what learners tend to do, they make a mistake of selecting literature they were not taught. So in my closing message today, I want to discourage you from choosing texts you were never taught. Do we mark the text you were never taught? Of course we do. It will be marked. But the problem with that is that you are not going to get a good mark because you were not taught. There are particular things that teachers of Life of Pi must know in order to teach Life of Pi. And there are things that teachers of the picture of Dorian Gray must know to teach the picture of Dorian Gray in terms of the teaching trends that are associated to teaching that particular novel. So if you are not taught, you won't be able to understand particular concepts such as anthropomorphism in Life of Pi. You won't understand concepts such as aestheticism in the picture of Dorian Gray, the Victorian era. There are things around the Puritanism in the Crucible, which you will not be able to know. There are things about having foil characters in Hamlet, which a learner of Othello won't be able to understand. There are things about the handkerchief in Othello that a learner of the Crucible and Hamlet will not be able to understand. So do go through your table of contents and take the novel you do and take the drama you do. And obviously, all of you are going to do the poetry section because all of you are doing all 12 poems. So that one is a given. But when it goes to section B and C, then we differ. All in all, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to make sure that you have answered 5 questions. We don't want the mistake that you guys did in your life orientation paper. Instead of writing 5 questions, most learners chose 4, and only to realize after I was supposed to answer 5. So this is how it's going to happen. In section A, you must have 3 questions. Poem 1, poem 2, these are from the 12 that you have done. And then poem 3 is your unseen, which is compulsory. Make sure you answer only 2 from the 12 you've been taught. Once you answer 3 and you leave out the unseen, we are going to mark the first 2 and we're going to discredit your 3rd poem because the instruction was you had a compulsory question and you decided not to take. So section A must have 3 questions. And then in section B, you either choose a contextual or an essay. So already you've got 3 questions answered. So that's going to be +1. You already have 4. Now, section B, you're either going to have a contextual or an essay. That is another +1. So you already have 1 other question, and then in total you've got 5. Now, here's the thing. If in section B you choose a contextual, in section C, automatically you must choose an essay. If in section B you chose an essay, automatically in section B you should choose a contextual. Never choose 2 contextuals. If you do a contextual in section B and you do a contextual in section C, we will only mark the contextual in section A and give you 0 for the second contextual. Likewise, if you choose an essay in section B and you choose an essay in section C, we are going to mark the essay in section B and give you 0 for the second essay. So guys, 25 marks is a lot to lose. So make sure you choose correctly and avoid choosing books, novels and drama you were not taught. Even if your friend used to do a crucible and bakoxela ngo John Proctor, no Abigail, no Elizabeth, and they gave you the story about the witch hunt, wonderful story that they told you. Stay away. Don't answer that. You didn't do it. When they Hamlet, Dylan get truth, no Ophelia. We don't care about the Lento Lapa or Richard Parker and Lento Pessin Molito. We don't care. You were told about the story. You were not taught about the story. Stay away. When you were taught about Basil Howard and Lord Henry. So stick to what you have been taught. So that brings us to the end of our session today. I'll meet you tomorrow. I'll check if we do have load shedding. Please do check your schedules, guys, so that we know. If we don't have load shedding, then we'll then revert back to the 6 p.m. slot. Any question, guys, before we dismiss?
No, sir.
All right. Kosam, did you manage to record the second session? So they can still find it on YouTube. Okay, please do resend the link on the group for those who couldn't come in so they could be able to watch later. Yeah, thank you so much for that move. It's going to help me not to always go back to things that I've taught, so people can just access the recording and be able to get what we were able to cover. Okay, guys, that brings us to the end. Remember, take time to rest, love yourself, drink enough water, stay away from the sun. Don't drink things that you are not supposed to drink. The exam is about 11 days from now. Please make sure don't take purgatives, because we don't want any problem when exam needs to start. You must be as healthy as you can. A reminder, please make sure you are at school on Friday, all of you. Nationally, you will be taking an oath, and at the same time, you need to sign for the oath. And also, you should be getting your timetables, your personalized timetables. Now, yeah, I can't end the session without saying this. Ensure that your ID is safe. Number one, when you get your timetable, at least make about 4 copies of your timetable. One must be placed on the fridge at home, the other one right on the door to your bedroom, and the next 3 will then remain safe in case you lose your original. In case you lose your original, make sure you have 3 more. Otherwise, you are not going to get into the exam. Andre Swap, please mute, please. Thank you. So make sure you have copies. Should you lose your ID, what is it that I need to do? On the very day you realize you have lost your ID, you need to rush to the Home Affairs and report it. They are going to give you an affidavit. It is that affidavit you're going to take to the Home Affairs. In fact, you run to the police station first. Police station, you get the affidavit, you go to the Home Affairs, and they give you temporary ID. And you're going to use that with the affidavit as your access card in place of your identity document. Guys, always make sure you have your ID with you and you have your timetable with you. Again, please be aware it's going to be extremely hot, and therefore at the same time the Department of Education does not permit you to bring bottled water into the venue because they are avoiding this going up and down. We all know the more water I drink, the more and frequently I'm going to visit the loo, and the frequent visiting of the loo undermines the quality of the exam, because the suspicion would be that you have some crypt notes hidden somewhere in the toilet. So you're not going to be allowed to drink water in the exam venue. So you are still going to be taken through these rules, but I'm just making you aware before, so that you understand that the things you are allowed to get away with in your June exam and your prelim exams, not this time around. So make sure you drink water sparingly. Unless then there's a doctor's note that proves you have a bladder issue. In such a case, exceptions are made only when the doctor has, and you should have made the school aware of this beginning of your grade 11 studies. It's not something that you're going to tell them now. The department is not going to allow you to do that. So please understand the level of the exam you're going into is a national level, and you are not going to undermine that. All right. Any questions? Say right. Okay. See you tomorrow. We'll confirm the times after seeing and after looking at our load shedding schedule. Have a pleasant night. I'll see you tomorrow.
Danko! Java wants to Mosha.